really for when the donor wants to be, able to support a specific cause, right? So one of the practical tips that we're going to start off with is understanding your funder. Why is it important that you understand your funder? If you're not a good match, you might be wasting time trying to fit into a space that you're not meant to be in. Donors are normally motivated by social, political, or personal factors. So when I say social, it could be as in something happened in a conflict, a natural disaster, and they want to do good. They want to assist. It could be political, as we know we have geopolitical forces going on. When we talk about if we have the European Union, we have our colonial history with the various past colonials being England, Portuguese, the French, and then they also now, while we may not have it in that sense, they still want to give back to parts of the world where they once had control. And then we also have personal factors. If it is that I hear your story and I feel moved by your story, I might want to give you money. And so therefore, we need to understand what the donor is looking for and what type of organization it would fund. So if we're looking at a foundation may not dig deep into developmental issues, such as the SDGs, being the Sustainable Development Goals. However, they might be looking more deeper into stuff as in, I want to feed these children because this is a need that needs to be addressed. And it's important to look at like your past giving patterns and what are their current thematic themes. Do they give money to be able to feed people, or do they give money to build houses or to do employment training? And how does your work align with their work? Because if it's not a similar work, we might find a good match, you know? And then how do they view partnerships? So a lot of people like to say that they don't want to apply with others because they want all the money for themselves. But 60% of a grant is better than no percent. And some funders do love to see partnership, right? They do want to ensure that their money is going to have a higher rate of investment by having a wider spread within it. And understand if you do qualify for their funding opportunities. And how do we understand? By reading the funding announcement. That's where you see the call for proposals, and you're going to read to make sure it's right country, right thematic areas, the right amount of money that you're looking for. Do you have to be registered? And to really get an understanding of what they're looking for and how you match them. Because if there's not a good match, then it may not work as well. Adhere to the funding guidelines. Why do we want to adhere to the funding guidelines? So I love to say that even though, yes, funding announcements may be similar, they're not the same. So while you might think, well, I just applied for a grant from X Foundation, therefore I could take that same application and put it to Y Foundation. It may not work because they might have little tweaks, they might have little changes in it that we need to be able to understand and be able to respond to. So if we use food, because you know I like my food, the same way when you reach in St. Vincent, they have Johnny Bakes, but when you reach in Trinidad, it's coconut bakes, and it's similar, but it's not the same. So it's the same way when you're looking at application process, you have to see what are the similar things, and you have to be able to gauge if you could adjust your proposal to fit this. And also another thing is when you adhere to the funding guidelines, you show the donor from the start how easy it would be to work with you. Are you someone who will use your own template, or are you somebody who will comply to the rules and regulation of the funding announcement? So these are the little things that you have to be mindful of, and also adhere to the submission guidelines. If they're saying that your due date is the 29th of August, let it be the 29th of August. Develop a structure for your story. So I know we don't always see the grant application way in advance, but we should try not to rush. Take the time to develop your story. Take the time to understand what it is that you're going to ask this person for. We also remember that a proposal is a love story. So you're trying to woo this person and you don't want to just come rushed to this person. So you want to create an application schedule leading up to the deadline, to like at least 2 days before, because we know technology, the same issues that we were just having happens. So we want to make sure that we are in line with the dates, right? And one of the things that I found is wise is to create a separate document. Even if it's an online form, even if they give you a document, don't start filling out their document one time. Create a separate document with the headings from the application and work on that sheet. So this is just where you gather your thoughts. And you're going to develop bullet points, not full sentences. I don't know if it was like this for you all, but when I was in high school and I had to write essays, the teacher always had to write a frame first before you actually write your essay. So same thing, write your bullet points. What do you think you want to accomplish in this project? And from those bullet points, develop your first draft of your budget. Why am I saying to do your budget before you finish your narrative? Because you don't want to reach to the cashier and realize you don't have enough money to cash out. So you want to make sure with your first bullet point proposal that you could afford the things based on the money that they're providing you in this grant. And once that is feasible, then you start to work on your project. And you're going to work backwards because only the front of your proposal is the simple things, your agency profile, background information, but the harder things are going to be your beneficiary, your rationale, and all of that stuff. You want to work on those things first, work on the hardest things first, use all the brain power there, and then move on to the smaller items. And then what kind of writing are we using? We're using data-driven and persuasive writing. What is data-driven writing? So data-driven writing is when you have facts to support what you're saying. So I am not just wooing you and telling you that this is a cause that needs to be, this is a health issue that needs to be addressed. I am showing you what PAHO has said. I am showing you what the Ministry of Health has said. I'm showing you what my beneficiaries have said to support the reason why this health initiative is important. And what is persuasive writing? Persuasive writing is writing in a style of trying to convince, trying to woo, trying to ensure that it's flowing. It is not spoken English, but it is written in a way that it stirs emotion. Not everyone wants emotions. Once again, this goes back to which kind of funder you're working with. The funder who is looking more at SDGs and that stuff may not want too much emotionally written writing versus the funder who is a foundation who is doing good, right? So the next thing is to submit a polished application. What do I mean by a polished application? You're going to review your work. You're going to ask your friends or ask your co-workers to review your work. I know it's hard because most nonprofits in the Caribbean is only 2%. So who is this pair? But maybe you could just take out the thick essay parts of your proposal and ask somebody else to review that. And ensure when somebody reviews your document, you're going to delete all the comments, because when you send it into the evaluation committee and they're like, oh, so this person told you to change this and you didn't change this, once again, you're showing all of that. And people do submit applications with comments because they're rushing. So that's why we need to have a plan beforehand to submit 2 days before. And we want to have a well-organized application as well, so that whoever is the grant coordinator could be able to know that all these files belong to this person, to this organization. I keeps it clean, keeps it cute, and keeps it organized, right? And you can submit a list of attachment if it is that you inserted a document into your body instead of putting it as an attachment. Say that in the email of your body as well. So we know we can't escape AI. AI is everywhere now, so we can learn how to use it wisely. Not only not to do our work, but to strengthen our existing work. So like this Canva uses AI. It can help predict your text. You have Grammarly that could spell check, and Grammarly and Canva have benefits for nonprofits. So you should check to see if your organization qualifies to get the nonprofit version of Canva and Grammarly. We have Google Gemini, Copilot, ChatGPT, and I learned of a new one called Steward by DonorDoc, where it's developed only for nonprofits who are doing fundraising. So that's another one we could check out. So what are we going to use this AI for? To explore our potential grant opportunities, produce project ideas and solution, analyze public opinions. We'll be like, is this an issue? Should I address this? Or if it is that you want to write and you don't have a peer to review your work, you can let them review your work. And now let's remember that AI is a tool that you have to train. So if you're going to use it, you're going to have to write the correct prompts, and you're going to have to teach it that, give it a background of what is the work that you're doing and how to use it. And then, like I said, AI could work with language bias and enhancing your readability and clarity. So Grammarly does that amazing job of that for me. And then you could also use AI to create an application schedule to help manage tasks and deadlines. So we just went through five practical tips. Do we have any questions before we move on to the technical side of the masterclass? Yes, Andrea.
Hi, Karen. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for sharing that. I just wanted you to repeat that last AI you mentioned that was specific for non-profits. I think it started with an S. I hope.
Steward by DonorDoc.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? Okay, so let's move on. So we know the standard project cycle has four stages, and within these four stages, the proposal lands in the project initiation and project planning. It's sharpened. So in your project initiation, you have to understand what it is that your organization does, who it could raise funds from, and what kind of project does your organization want to work on. And that will help clarify. And where there's clarity, there's movement, right? So the four stages is project initiation, project planning, project execution, and project closure. Ooh, wrong way. Right. And so like I was saying, you have various parts of a proposal. The first few parts are normally your project profile, organizational background, management systems showing how your organization is governed, your objectives, output, outcomes, and then your rationale, beneficiary assessment, sustainability plan, and implementation and budget. Right. So your project objectives. This is the part that if you get this right, you should get everything right. This is what is your project vision? Who is your specific target group? How many activities and how many persons will benefit from these activities, right? So we're trying to ensure that we could concisely describe the mission of the project, which is going to be in alignment with the mission of your organization, which is supposed to be in alignment with your potential funder, right? And then from that, you have two sets of project objectives. You have your major and you have your specific. You can provide your project vision that your major objective provides the vision that you're implementing, focusing on the overall intent and the plan impact, with your specific providing an overview of the activities and how they will be measured within the project implementation period. So how do we put this together to make a project methodology? So you have project activities that need to be aligned with your project objectives. Because if you're saying that we're going to have a health initiative, so we're going to have a major objective to deal with the health issues within our country. I'm going to pick Barbados because that's where I'm currently residing. And our specific objective is to have a workshop exercise program with 10 persons, right? So what my activities are going to be if I want to address health issues? My activities are going to be the events which need to be executed. What needs to be done? So I'm probably going to need to have, let's see, I'm going to need to have an exercise room, a place where they can exercise, workshops where they can be educated on healthy eating, and maybe some seminars on other topics that they're currently facing with. So that is what's going to happen. And then from what's going to happen, I'm going to be able to write my outputs. My outputs is what's going to be achieved immediately after implementing an activity. So I have 10 persons who were able to access exercise, able to access medical practitioners, and also workshops on healthy eating. And from that, after they go through the project, they have an output. I should have an outcome of how much was done. What was the impact of what was the outcome of this? Being what was the qualitative change or behavior in there from this project? It speaks about the improvement experience shortly after. So hopefully, after they go through my health program, the outcome is that I have increased healthy diet, increase of good choices when it comes to food. I have increased in physical activity among these 10 persons. So that would be my outcome. And then my impact is my long-term objective, my long-term outcome achieved. What is my qualitative change and speaks about the sustainable change. So later on, do I see 5 months, 10 months after the project, do I see a decrease in going to the doctor for things that could be addressed through diet? Do I see a reduction with the diseases, with the diabetes? So that would be my long-term impact. So my activities is what's going to happen within my project. My output is what happens right after I have my activity. My outcome is my short term. So by the time the project is done, and my impact is after the project is done and a few months later, what was my real impact in this? So when you put these things all together, this is your methodology. Of course, for most donors, you're going to need to be able to put this in a paragraph way. But once you get these key points, once you're able to identify these things, and what I see often when I'm evaluating grants is people confuse tasks with activities. So let me just go over that again. A task is the planning process to achieve an activity. So to call the trainer, to call the gym to see if they could host me, that is a task. The activity is hosting the 5 workout sessions for the 10 persons. The outcome is the 5 persons trained in exercise. The output is 5 persons trained in exercise or healthy eating. The outcome is being enhanced ability to exercise at home. Impact is a reducing diseases. Yeah. So if we watch it here, we have the activities are in future tense. It's quantitative. It's what's going to be done in the project. Your output, it is your past tense. Short term tells us how much is to be done or was done. And then your outcome tells us what was the difference made, and your impact tells us how much difference was made as well. Right? Any questions? Yes, the slides will be shared and the recording will be shared. All right. So one thing that scares a lot of people is when they ask you about a logic model, which is really a snapshot about how your project was supposed to work, right? So it's an overview of your desired impact and how you believe the change will take place and the assumptions that need to be held true. So once again, I said that in the beginning, I said that most funding announcements are similar, but not identically same. So you will have various things you would see in in proposal, calls for proposals, asking you to have tables that might look similar to this, but maybe slightly different. But this is a model that I think is the most simplified model. And I believe in doing this after you do your bullet points, after you ensure that your budget could fit into the space, that you do this to ensure that everything lines up. So for your first column, you have your inputs. What are your inputs? Who in your team do you have that could work on this project, that could help you work on this health project? What are the strategic partnerships that you need? So these are all the things that are going to make the project work. All right. What are the strategic information that you need? So if it is that you need to be able, so a strategic partnership will probably be a partnership with the Ministry of Health. It could be a partnership with another NGO that looks at health. Strategic information. What would work in your culture? Because we know that even though we're one Caribbean, we have different cultures, right? So what might work in Trinidad may not work in Jamaica. What might work in St. Vincent may not work in Grenada. What M&A are we going to use to measure? And who's going to fund? Are we only going to get funding from one person, or are we going to look for funding for different persons to ensure this project works? So your second thing is your specific objective. So like I said before, they're tangible, they're concrete and measurable and achievable within the project implementation period. So you want to put, if you have two objectives, you want to give each one so that you're working along, that you could see in one line how this objective is going to be achieved, that you could see in one line how the second objective could be seen. And this will help you be able to flesh out your project as a narrative, right? And then some donors do ask for this by themselves. The EU loves to ask for a logic framework, which is bigger. And then you have a theory of change, which is trying to figure out your pathways of conditions and saying, well, we believe that if this happens, then change will happen this way. And you have your results framework, which is a if then, saying that if this happens, then that happens. So there are three types of logic models, but this is the most simplified model. And this helps you just get a snapshot of what is supposed to happen. Different donors ask for different types of logic models. So like we said, we have a specific objective to increase the health of 10 women or 10 persons. Activities to be executed. We had for this first objective that we were going to have a health exercise, a healthy eating program, and medical seminars. So what are my outputs? Right? So I just said what my activities are, my outputs. What are my quantified achieved immediately after implementing our activity? So if I have 10 persons exercising, 10 persons trained. If I have the healthy eating workshop, quantifiable results, 10 persons trained in healthy eating. It could be as simple as that, or it could be healthy training seminar held. What is my outcome? What is my positive change that was observed after I got my outputs? 10 persons eating healthier, increase in healthy eating habits, increase in good decision making. Those things could be an outcome. And then my impact is the long term. So but it should be positive. So enhance ability to make wise decisions relating to health, increase in healthy eating habits. But this is probably where when you're struggling, you can probably use AI to be like, how could you strengthen this for me? And then my assumptions, what is outside the direct control of a project? Because remember, your objective is supposed to be under your control, your activities supposed to be under your control, outputs, outcomes, impact. But your assumptions are those things that are not under control and must be met. I mean, one for the Caribbean is we spend 6 months preparing for hurricane season and 6 months recovering. So assumption is that we will have good weather, and we will not be threatened by any life-changing natural hazards. But Assumption could be that we will continue to have relatively democratic governance and be in a safe place without conflict so that we can be able to carry out our projects. So those assumptions are things that you can't control, but they will affect your project. Any questions before we move on to the next one? Y'all are a quiet bunch. Okay. Oh, please remember to change your display name. Sorry about sending the last link, which everybody's name Dwayne, and you could say change it to your name and the country that you're in so that we can know who is represented from the region and the world in this workshop. So the next thing is, how do we get it done? How do we carry that logic model framework that I just showed you into an implementation plan? So the implementation plan should also have your objectives. So you see the importance of writing good objectives because your objectives carry straight through to the end of the project, right? So you have to have good objectives. You already have your activities, and now you need to break it down into your tasks and who's responsible on your team. So we saw on your logic model, you have your human resources. Who are the team members that are going to work with you? They need to be involved in your implementation plan development. What are the activities? What are the risks? Who's going on holiday? Who's not going on holiday to ensure that you're able to schedule this in a way that does not affect the ability of your team to deliver to your donor. You could use something called a responsibility assignment matrix or RACI, and it will help you allocate not only your team, it will help you delegate your resources. If you all have a laptop, if it is that you need to have software, equipment, what it is you need to be able to execute, set it on a timeline, and be able to hold everybody responsible. Normally, when you're submitting to a donor, they may not ask you for the RACI with the responsibility of your team member, but it's good to do it internally. So when you do get the funds, you can hit the ground running. So you might just have to take off the responsibility part of it, because as far as the donors are concerned, the team is responsible and they will hold the team lead responsible for anything that is unable to be delivered. So what is a beneficiary assessment? So I talked a bit about a beneficiary assessment on our social media channels. It's a qualitative tool to ensure that you have an understanding of the possible impact of your project. It helps you understand what are the needs and how the group wishes for these needs to be addressed. It assesses the values of the beneficiaries that you're working with and allows you to be able to respond to them. So in general, we have 4 types of needs. We have perceived needs, which are subjective and may change based on the individual point of view. Expressed needs, which relate to community, are needs that they have set and can help create a framework. And your absolute needs, which are your needs for survival. So that's water, clothes, shelter. And then you have relative needs, which are equity-based, based on the current circumstances. So you need water, food, but do you need sparkling water or do you need regular water? And then also relative could also be, if it is that there's accessibility issue, do you need a special accommodation to have access to the project? So you would prefer to ground your proposal or your project in your express needs and your relative needs. Because if we're looking at health, when we say that we want to reach 10 persons, are we what kind of 10 persons are we looking for? Who is the catchment? Are we looking for 10-year-olds? Are we looking for persons of wide ages, wide ability? So are we looking for wheelchair users? Are we looking for persons with intellectual disabilities? Are we looking for persons who are retired? So that's why in that case, it would be relative. And then from that, also express needs. So there are steps in your beneficiary assessment. You want to define who your beneficiaries are. So you start off with those questions I was asking about who really are these 10 people that I want to serve. And then I could do a stakeholder mapping to understand the sphere of influence and the level of interest of the individuals and how they could affect my project. Why is this important? Because I don't want to say that I want to target 10 persons with disabilities, but I never involved the disability organization in my proposal planning or anything. I just decided I would say this and hope that they come through. But then when the donor asks where these people be like, well, they never engaged us. So you need to be able to understand who are your stakeholders. If it is that you want to reach persons with disabilities, are you part of that community, or do you have access to somebody who is part of that community to be able to influence their ability to take part in your project? And conduct a gender-based analysis. Now, there are different types of gender-based analysis frameworks, but I like the gender-based analysis plus, which is a analytical process of understanding how diverse groups of women, men, and gender diverse people experience policy, programs, and service based on multiple factors beyond sex and sociocultural gender differences. But what is gender? So gender is a socially constructed roles and responsibilities for men and women. It also talks about the expectations that we have for these roles and how they were learned over time and how they may vary within culture. So it's just trying to understand how each person operates in the space in which we want to do a project. And we need to understand how to be able to meet them where they are and to ensure that the work that we're doing is not negative, that is not going to create harm, and it's also going to be able to have buy-in by those involved. So when we look at a gender-based analysis plus, we're not just looking at sex being male or female, but we're looking at the education, sexual orientation, disability, age, race, economic, geography, religion, and language. So I've been talking about the health. I've been using a health program as project as the example. So if we look at the health again, if we look at where we want to have these exercise programs, where we want to have this healthy eating seminar, these are things, these factors that are on the screen affect how the beneficiaries will be able to absorb the information and partake in the project. In what ways? When I'm looking for a room to do the exercise class, I need to see if is it fully accessible? Is it stairs or is it not? And that's not only about disability, but that also could be about age, because if we're going to have persons 70 and over, and we have the hip pain and we have that, could they come up the stairs to the room? If we're going to have persons with wheelchair users, could they, if they don't have stairs, do they have an elevator? If it is intellectual disabilities, does the trainer know how to deal with these people? If it's the hard of hearing community, do we know sign language? So all these things play a fact. And then we have a issue about how accessible is the place? Is it in a close proximity? So even if we find a space that is accessible, is it an hour away from the community that we want to serve? So that's about geography there again. If it is religion, if it is that we want to say we want to save 10 males, 10 females, but if it is that the religion being, they're very religious and the women don't want to exercise with the men because they want to be modest, how are we going to navigate that? So you see all the things that with gender-based analysis you could think about to be able to ensure that your project is actually responding to the needs of the people that you're wanting to serve. And even when we get into the exercise room, if it is that we're dealing with people who are over 70, is the trainer going to do all the standing exercises at the start and then tell them to go down on the floor to do core? Because if not, if he asks them to go up and down, we might have some issues. We've been spending a lot of time trying to lift the people off the floor. So all these things go into place. So digging deep. So what I was trying to walk you all through. So how is the problem affecting them differently? How is not having healthy eating and not moving affecting men, women, boys, and girls differently? How do their other identities impact the experience of the problem? If would their religion allow them to exercise with persons of the other sex? Sexuality. Are they in a community that is very heteronormative and will not be open to them if they are openly queer? Age. Do you want to have a 70-year-old exercising with a 10-year-old? Ethnicity, socioeconomic class, and all these things you need to examine and think of before actually putting your project into place. And then when you're doing this, you need to speak to your beneficiaries again. So that's where we talk about speaking to them. Were they consulted? How have you considered facilitating them? How have you used the information from the assessment to actually build your proposal? And that is a snapshot of how you do a gender-based analysis within a beneficiary assessment. And now I'm going to open the floor again for any questions before I go on to the activity for the night. Because we're almost close to closing time. And I told y'all I'll only have y'all here for an hour and I want to be respectful of your time. Yes, Samantha.
Okay, so I had a quick question. So because usually when you do a project proposal, sometimes you're working within a short time frame. So my question is, how would you navigate doing these particular analysis within a strict timeline? Maybe not be able to have enough time to research or to gather this information. How do you navigate that?
So one thing, you have to stay prepared at all times. So you should be doing research as you go along with your doing your work, asking your beneficiary questions, and also doing desk research and saving them in a folder for potential projects. So that's one way you will save time. So when you see the call, you're able to jump on it and you already have your research. The second way is, so you can do a beneficiary assessment with a focus group, a short interview, or having a conversation with the key stakeholders in your group. It doesn't have to be a 5-month period of assessment. It could just be at least having some conversations with the key persons who will actually benefit from the project to ensure. So it'd be like, I'm gonna have this exercise class. Does it make sense to have it at 9 o'clock or should I have it at 6 p.m.? When would you all be available? Yeah?
Okay, thank you for that. That is very helpful.
Okay, great. Anyone else?
I have a question, but it's not related to this section of the presentation.
Oh, sure.
Mr. Elizabeth in the front, so I didn't know if you touched on it before, but for me, I have a little bit of experience at grants. So my company, we've been bootstrapping through grants for the past year and a half, and we've been actually quite successful. We've won maybe about 6 grants so far, 2 monetary and the rest are like travel. But my thing is that where are we supposed to be finding these grants? I think my biggest issue is actually sourcing these grants because I like to apply for maybe 1 to 2 programs a month, 3 if I can find it. But just having the channels to these kind of grants and opportunities, especially ones that meet our nationality requirements and stuff like that, because a lot of these grants are very, very specific on what topics they're sponsoring, who they're sponsoring, demographic, age, stuff like that. So what are some of your best portals for actually finding grants?
So we have funds for NGO. they normally collect grants from all over and put that out on live. There is, but like I said, it's steward by Donor Deck. Donor Deck also helps you with fundraising and grant proposal writing. And there's another AI tool that I can't remember the name, but it's also a grant writing, it's also a grant finding one to help you find grants. So that's one thing. But I mean, when it comes to fundraising, grant writing, we're supposed to have a donor database and be able, as in each organization, I know we're small, so it's hard, but what we're supposed to do is have a database and be able to chart when they release their funds and what time that they release their funds so that we could stay ready. And we know that the EU call is going to come out at this time. We know that Canada Fund for Local Initiatives is going to come out in March, April latest. We know that the LEAF Fund is going to come out in September. We know that. So you start to track people. We know that the foundations don't normally have a set time for grants, but or you could ask them, reach out and talk to the donors as well. If it's foundations or whatnot, reach out and have a conversation. Find out if they do quarterly grants or if they just take grants applications. Sure, because I know Massey takes on an ongoing basis. Massey, Maria Holder Foundation and Legacy Foundation in Barbados as well that takes on an ongoing basis. So have a conversation with the donors who service your region and find out what their funding cycle is like and be able to track that as well. That's another thing that we should do.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, what's your name? Because you didn't get to change your name.
Oh, well, I tried, but I am logged in on my phone because I
Okay.
was on the way home from work. So,
That's all right. It was my fault.
Lisa.
Lisa, okay. Thank you, Lisa. All right. So any more questions before I go to the Jeopardy? Going once, going twice. Are y'all seeing my screen? Yeah? Yes.
Yes.
So y'all are being very quiet, but we're supposed to be playing Jeopardy. I don't know if anybody wants to go first and pick a number on the column, or y'all want me to go through it one by one. Yes, Sandrina.
I won't trust your selection. So project what for 400? And I think I'll just allow Anil to answer.
Okay. This medium-term achievement is derived from a successful completion of an output. Anybody remembers what the medium-term achievement is?
Is that the outcome?
Yes. Yay. Anyone else wants to go?
Steps in a plan for 300.
Okay, great. The bullet points for project activity should be used to develop this key document. You don't want to reach by the cashier. That's my clue. Proposal. So we have some guesses. But your budget, you don't want to reach. So you want to use the bullet points of the project activity to build your budget first to make sure that they can fit into the grant amount that is being offered. Anyone else wants to go? All right, so circle of projects for 3 This stage focuses on completing tasks, managing resources, and monitoring and control. What is the project execution? So remember, we have 4 stages in the project cycle. Steps for applying. The first step is for applying. First step in applying for funding requires the applying agency to conduct research. Understanding your funder. It is imperative that the applying agency, that you, something to the funding guidelines.
Adhere? Oh.
Yes. An application that is submitted that has been peer reviewed without comments in the body. A polished application. This type of software can be used to generate project ideas or strengthen your writing.
AI.
Yes. The first stage in the project cycle.
That's a project initiation.
Great. During this stage, the project evaluation and documentations and lessons are learned. Occurred, yeah. Which is your project closure. This is the last stage of your project cycle. The second stage of the project cycle requires a detailed plan, business assessment, and mitigation strategies, which is your project planning. The project cycle consists of how many stages?
4.
4, yeah, correct. This provides your project vision that you're implementing, focusing on the overall intent and the plan impact on your beneficiaries.
Implementation plan?
Vision, so is your objective,
Okay.
your major objective. This shows the reader the intended activities should be concrete, measurable, and achievable within the project implementation period. Specific objectives. These results are achieved immediately after implementing an activity.
Outcomes.
Immediately after.
Output.
Yes. This is the long-term outcome that is achieved from a project output.
Impact.
Impact.
Yes, thank you. So this is a qualitative tool used to improve the impact of your development projects.
Implementation plan?
No, this is your beneficiary assessment. This relates to the community articulated concerns and can help create a framework of what has to be accomplished. What is the express needs? This helps to understand the project's sphere of influence, the level of interest that individuals and organizations that your intervention could affect. What is stakeholder mapping? This process assesses how diverse groups of women, men, and gender diverse people experience policies, programs, service-based, and multiple factors.
Gender-based analysis plus?
Yes. From your gender-based analysis shapes the project design. This one's a little tricky. The findings. So based on your findings of your gender analysis, it should shape your project design, your project rationale, and how you're going to do your intervention. So do we have any other questions? At this time, if you could possibly put on your camera so that we could take a group photo, I would really appreciate that. Hmm?
Karen, you have to do it before my hair takes its original form. I wasn't ready.
Sorry. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, so thank you, everyone. I'm trying to keep on time, so the recording and the slides will be shared. Please remember to follow us on Instagram at Kainos Consultant and LinkedIn as well, and on YouTube. You will get a feedback form in your email shortly. Please fill it out so I can learn from this experience how to improve and how we could continue to work together. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good night.